Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, we have our guests, and I love the fact that people trust us to come to the show and to really show us who they are in a deeper level than a conversation that you just hear from a friend or anything. So I want to welcome this guest. I'm going to have Katie explain who she is, what she does, and all of those good things. And then, as usual, as we do here in Threads of Enlightenment, and we're going to go back and we're going to ask her all those probing questions. And hopefully, she can educate us all, and that you and I can grow and become the best human spirits possible. Thank you. Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you so much, Ken. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so I'm so grateful you've created this space. It's like this is the this is the real stuff, right?
Yes,
Like
isn't
having these
it?
conversations.
Yeah, it is. I love it. It has flavor. It uh, shows people that the human race is beautiful, and that we all of
Mm,
us. It doesn't matter what color, what creed, what religion. That we are beautiful, and that we ought to remember that as we deal with each other. So we are excited to have you here, and just keep us. Just tell us what you do and all of the good stuff, and then we'll go from there.
awesome. Yes. So my name is Katie Barbaro, and I am here living in Park City, Utah currently. I've bounced around quite a bit in the past, I would say, 7 years. I'm
Wow.
originally from Los Angeles, California,
Hmm.
and I spent some time living in New York. And um, when I started, so I guess I'll work backwards. I know you like to uncover the threads after we have the
Yes.
tapestry. So I'll tell you the tapestry,
Yes.
um, which is I'm on the verge. I'm a week and a half away from maybe by the time people are listening to this, it's already happened. But
Uh-huh.
on September 15th, which is very soon, I
Yeah.
will be publishing a graphic memoir, a hand drawn, illustrated um, book about my journey recovering from disordered eating. And this is my first time
Excellent.
ever publishing
Oh,
something.
good.
Thank
Congratulations.
mhm.
Congratulations. I'm going to post it
Thank
all
you
over the
so
place.
much. Oh, I'm so excited. Yes, there's going to be an ebook too. So if you're listening out of the United States, you can you can still
Excellent.
get it.
Yes, I'm going to
Um,
post it on all of our every place, all of the Instagram and Facebook and the blog, every place. So I'm going to tell them to make sure that they buy at least a couple of copies and give it away to friends. You know.
oh, thank you so much. That means a lot to me.
Oh, you're
Yeah, it's
welcome.
it's so it's interesting being in a position like this because there's this voice in my head about like, who are you to do this? Who are you to share
Hmm.
your story? And I know that there's a truer voice lower than it, and that's the same thing you focus on here at Threads
Yes.
of Enlightenment, right? It's
Hmm.
like your story is everything, right? It's
Yes.
just and our stories, it's none of our business how they
Hmm.
catalyze transformation in other people
Yes.
or
Hmm.
inspiration in other people.
Yes.
And so,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. It's a
Mhm.
beautiful, I always tell people it's a pleasure and honor to get a chance to to know who you are. Each one of us has to take that journey. It is painful, but it is absolutely beautiful because once you have graduated you're not going to graduate from everything, but you will graduate enough to begin to look at yourself and say, wow, I'm beautiful. I like me. I am still learning, but I like me. I think that
Mm,
is the beginning of our transformation in the sense that we are able to now not let someone's opinion of us overvalue our opinion of who we are.
that's so beautiful. Yes. It's like I let my like deciding that my love for myself and every single bit of myself, even my imperfections, my
Hmm.
self-doubt, my insecurities, I the love that I have for myself transcends all of that and
Yes.
encompasses it. Yeah,
Hmm.
and it's this like decision. that's what self-love feels like to me. It's like this decision to actually love whatever bubbles out of me. And then
Yes.
that gets extended to every human as well. Like, I love you no matter what is inside of you.
Hmm.
There's no question.
I know
Mhm.
because there's a saying, the principle is this: to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy might and with all thy strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And I believe if we as a global community just live by that one principle, what a beautiful world it would be. And because once you have accepted yourself and love yourself, then you can look at me, because you are your biggest judge. You are, you, all your faults are so magnified and you look so small. But once you have learned how to conquer those demons and feelings, so when you look at me, you have this glow, this non-judgmental view of life and people, that it's so beautiful, and I love to see that. And when you can sense it when you're having conversations with people. It's like the most beautiful thing, you know. I love that stuff.
Mm. That's the best stuff.
I know, I just love it.
Yeah,
So
I love it's yeah, it all starts with that self-love and then it radiates. It's awesome.
So, how did you, your battle, as I was looking at some of your things with the eating disorder, at what age did you had to realize, you realize that, wait a minute, there's a situation that is here in my life? How did you begin to find your way to the other side? Because it is, I always tell people, your journey is never a linear thing. In many cases, it's usually you begin it at a traumatic time in your life. I don't know why we wait until that time, but most of us do. But I think it's a shaking of the tree, as they say, and then we begin to look at what is, quote unquote, the norm, and how does the norm
Mm.
apply to me, and then we begin to start walking our way. So, how did this happen to you, and how old were you when you began to shake that tree?
I love that metaphor of shaking the tree. Um, I would say, well, currently I'm 32 right now,
Hmm.
and growing up, I distinctly remember moments where I gathered these imprints of your your body isn't good enough, you're gonna need to lose weight, these
Hmm.
ideas. Nobody overtly said this to me, I just kind of picked up on it
Okay.
as, you know, like I wanted to be an actress, and I talk about this a lot in my book. Like, my
Hmm.
parents were very adamant, they're like, "You can be an actress," but I remember my mom saying, "If someone makes you, like, lose weight or something for a role, make sure you don't do it." And so as the child, I hear, "Oh, they're gonna want me to lose weight.
Hmm.
I better do that."
Yeah.
It just gave me this association with, like, success and being in a smaller body, or, it gave me this program
Hmm.
that carried with me, and as long as I can remember, I had
Wow.
wanted to lose weight. I
Wow.
wasn't necessarily in the depths of an eating disorder then,
Hmm.
but I can see the insidious programming taking hold of me as a very young child.
Wow.
And it wasn't until um and like you said, this process is not linear, right?
Hmm.
So one of my first shaking the tree moments in my life, um, in regards to really dislodging some of this stuff, was I was I'd been with a partner for about almost 5 years,
Hmm.
and I saw myself marrying this person, having babies together. Like, I was, and I was in complete denial of aspects of our relationship that
Hmm.
maybe weren't working,
Yeah. Yeah.
and, uh, and I found out that he was cheating on me,
Wow.
and and that moment was just confronted me with the truth
Hmm.
in a way that I hadn't been confronted up till that point, where I genuinely saw reality in a
Hmm.
certain way, and then getting this information. um, made me realize, like, I couldn't that the way I was seeing things wasn't actually
Was not.
true.
Yeah.
And, you know, just having that possibility
Hmm.
was a real ego killer in a good way, right? I needed to have this humility towards life
Yeah.
that it wasn't all how I scripted it in my head.
It's never that
And
way.
it is never that way. Yeah, exactly. If you think you know what's going on, you are very far from what's going on. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. So yeah, I'm sure that many of our listeners, including myself, I've been there before. So we totally can empathize with you on that in that case.
Yeah. Yes, and it's kind of this, like, paradigm shift, right? Where you're like,
Hmm.
"Whoa, I need to get my footing." And one of the ways I attempted to get my footing
Hmm.
was kinda clamping down on the way I was eating. And, I had kind of been through this, like, obsessive dieting spiral,
Hmm.
for a while, but I didn't see it as a problem.
Hmm.
It's something that's very normalized
Yeah.
in our Western
Yes, in
culture.
Western culture. Yeah. Hmm.
And so it was after this big breakup that I had, and it awakened this lion in me where I was
Hmm.
like, "You know what? No, we're not I'm not available for, working on this right now." Like, I need complete space, and I needed to cut it off and, like, not and, like, stand up for myself. Like, it was this
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
much, like, a big soul lesson for me, right? My
Hmm.
soul needed to come forward and be like, "This is not okay.
Yeah.
I need to start choosing myself on a deeper level."
Hmm.
And, but on that journey, I sank even further back when it came to my eating behaviors, and I developed bulimia, which is when
Wow.
um, I had been kind of restrictive in the way I
Hmm.
was eating up to that point. And that kind of led to binging. And then the binging was, like, out of control, and I
Wow.
would release all that by purging. And
Wow.
it was yeah.
And how old were you at that time?
At that time, I was around 25. I was
Okay. Wow.
24 or 25, like,
Hmm.
when I went through that breakup.
Wow.
And, um, yeah, so it was a whole new low that I hadn't experienced
And how
until
long
then.
did you stay in that period of your the dark places? I tell people it's um, there's a parable that says that the prodigal son went and ate with the pigs, and when he ate with the pigs after he lost all his money, was when he got the revelation that, hey, I don't need to be eating with the pigs. And so I say to some people sometimes, some of us have to go and eat with the pigs as a metaphor, where you go into the dark places. And in those places, as you just alluded to, was when you start getting those revelations that you got one that, wait a minute, I can't allow this. And so you start with your revelations about how you are being treated, how you are being spoken to, all of these things. So, how long did you think you stayed there?
Yeah, that's a that's a great question. I knew I knew at that point that it wasn't right. Like, it took a while. It probably took
Mm-hmm.
me a good 2 years
Mm-hmm.
of really grappling and trying to fix it on my own. I would
Yeah.
say the darkness was me trying to fix it on my own without telling anyone about it. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
told a few people, but it wasn't like I was actually letting them in on
And
that level.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
there was I still had some walls up when it
Yeah.
came to really asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
And, like you said, there are so many layers of this, and there's so
Yeah.
many there were some things I did for myself that were extremely loving. I did my
Mm-hmm.
best. Like, I
Yeah.
was always doing my best. And one of the things I did was kept a promise to myself. I had made long ago when I was in going into college, I had wanted to go far away,
Mm-hmm.
because I had always wanted to live somewhere else, but I promised myself I could live somewhere else
Mm-hmm.
after college. I would move somewhere when I was a grown up, and so I went to USC, which is very close to Los Angeles, where I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And and also I majored in occupational therapy, which I love, but my
Mm-hmm.
passion was acting. My passion was comedy. I was doing comedy and acting like nights and weekends while I was working a full-time pediatric occupational therapy job out of
Wow.
college. So this was the time in which I was developing this eating disorder. I was also very booked. I had like a 40-hour a week job, which was fulfilling,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it was also I was giving more than I had.
Yeah. Yeah. We
And then I
hide
was
there,
trying to
Kelly. We hide there.
yeah,
We
exactly.
hide
Yeah,
in
I
our
was like,
busyness.
"Uh-huh." And I was doing improv nights and weekends. I was
Mm-hmm.
like all of these things were keeping me busy, and
Yes.
I looked I presented very successful. I
Mm-hmm.
looked good on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
outside.
Mm-hmm.
But then this breakup really made me question everything,
Everything.
all the ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I realized one of the things I really wanted to do was to focus my full-time energy on acting
Mm-hmm.
and comedy and and also um yeah, just like choosing my creative passions
Yeah.
over my OT career, which was
Mm-hmm.
kind of meant to be a backup plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um so I moved to New York and started doing acting and improv as my main focus. And
Wow.
I still had a part time OT job. And it was really amazing. And my
Mm-hmm.
eating disorder kind of went away for like several months. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm cured. I did it. I did it. I fixed it. And of course, cue ominous music when that
Yeah.
happens. It's like, oh, she thinks she's in control. Guess what?
Yep.
The universe has other plans
Other
for her.
plans still haven't learned yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
We hide in
So
our busyness, and it takes us. That's where the time goes because we have learned how to cope, and then we get this knock on the door several years later. We're not finished yet. So tell us, once you get your knock, what
exactly.
happened when that knock came?
The knock came. I had a couple weeks where we had visitors from out of town
Hmm.
and we were going out to eat a lot. It was basically my perfectly constructed life where I had the same thing every day for breakfast and I knew
Hmm.
what I was, I was still counting all my
All the
calories. Like I was
calories.
everything was yeah, it was like this tightly wound uh organism. It was my
Hmm.
life. And when there was like a wrench thrown into that, I started my eating disorder behaviors came back really strong,
Wow.
really loud, really full on, so I couldn't ignore them.
Hmm.
It was like,
How did that happen, Katie? How did it how did those thoughts started to manifest to the point where it became your main focus? How what was there something or just that continuous moving and moving, or was there some specific incident that boom and here it is again?
I mean, having those visitors with us,
Hmm.
and my boyfriend's parents were I had a new boyfriend at the time,
Hmm.
and his parents came to visit, and they were taking us out to really nice meals and all this stuff, and my I just felt my, like, scarcity mentality come back of, like, "You need to eat as much as you can here,"
Hmm.
and I was just, like, ripped away from the present moment,
Hmm.
and it was just showing me what had been there all along that I
Yeah.
was kind of suppressing.
Hmm.
This, like, um, that I wasn't really in control. Um,
Yeah.
the ways that I thought I was in control, I wasn't. And
Hmm.
then I had this moment. So the realization that my eating disorder was not quote unquote fixed. It wasn't fully healed.
Hmm.
Became very apparent to me. I started looking up recovery programs and things like this. And I was also writing stand up material about my eating disorder, and I performed a lot about it
Hmm.
actually throughout my recovery process. And I was sharing with a friend about it, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I'm also a compulsive overeater, and I'm in this anonymous program." And I
Hmm.
was like, "Oh, I'd never heard of it." And it was then that was this moment of like
Hmm.
serendipity, of synchronicity, the universe, God giving me this gift of
Yeah.
exactly what I needed. Like
Hmm.
I didn't I didn't know what was going to happen there, but I just
Hmm.
knew that level of surrender and being seen
Yeah.
by others and
Hmm.
not hiding anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to go tell on myself is like
Yeah.
how it felt.
Yeah.
I'm just going to
Hmm.
just I have nothing to hide. This is what's going on and I'm powerless.
It's a
Um,
great place to be, isn't it?
it is the best place to be.
It
We're
is.
like, "I
It.
don't need to have it figured out."
I know a lot of
Yeah.
people don't know the beauty of surrendering. I think because me, in my case, I was this person. I always had to be in self control. I worked in corporate America. I was always in my suit and everything. I had to be in control in the sense that my days and my life and everything, I could manage it. If it got out of hand and I couldn't manage it, then all hell broke loose. But it's that thing of just learning to go, okay, this is going to be new. I don't know where I'm going to end up, but and you jump. It's bringing in people into those dark places, and so you place yourself in total vulnerability and a surrender, not to just the people, but it is the entire. I think your being, your energy. Once you do that, things begin to fall into place a lot faster than you would think that it would. You think it would be just long, whatever. But that place that you talk about, it is such a beautiful place. It is such a vulnerable place, but it is a beautiful place.
Mm. Yes, it is, and I love that you connect that with, like, things just start to happen
Yes.
much faster than you would think,
Hmm.
because the reason they're not happening that quickly is our resistance to
Exactly.
surrendering. Like,
That is the key right there. That's
we're in
it.
a cage that our egos built to try to
Hmm.
keep us in a certain form,
Yeah.
in a certain, like you said, control and
Hmm.
managing everything,
Yeah,
and as
we're in
soon as we're just like,
control. Hmm.
"Yeah."
I got this. I got this. And
Ah.
one of my guru used to say, "Let life disturb your comfort," and then life shows up. Boom, and your that friend came in and your comfort was disturbed. And now your next step, your next phase, and that's the growth, the beginning of the surrender to it all. And from there, I'm telling you, I try to tell my listeners, um, a lot of people, you talk about it took you several years. And that time, Katie, a lot of people are hard on themselves. They abuse themselves with their language, their
Mm.
words. And I think sometimes if we would learn to put a tape down and begin to really hear what we say to ourselves, I think it would horrify us. And so I always try to tell people, as you mentioned, it took you 2 years, but to be kind to yourself, you have to learn to be kind to yourself, even when you make that decision to be open to people, and those thoughts will come back again. And you have to learn how to say, no, I haven't given you permission to manifest that. And you have to, that's how you begin to start taking control of this stuff, in this newness that is happening to you, where you say to the old thoughts, the old ways, not now,
Mm.
not now, not now. And those thoughts come and they come every second, a million times a day. And I tell people, speak to it, tell it no. That's it. Just say no,
Mm.
because you are creating something new, something different, and you don't even know what it is. but you're creating something new. And so tell us about as you started to create this newness, this new person. Tell us how you began that here at this place and further on.
Oh, that's a great question. When you were talking about talking to that voice, it made me think of mirror work, which is something that I definitely used throughout this period.
Mm-hmm.
Something that Louise Hay in the book You Can Heal Your Life,
Mm-hmm.
that book made a big impact on me. And it was this experience of really just looking at myself in the mirror, looking into my own eyes
Mm-hmm.
and being there and letting it all arise, right? The self-hatred just comes right
Yeah.
up to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just feel and you hear every single thought of that inner critic, that inner demon that's just
Yeah.
trying to tear you down.
Mm-hmm.
And you commit to being there until you can connect to the part of you that just starting with like, I want to love you,
Mm-hmm.
looking in your eyes
Yes.
and saying, I'm
Yes.
willing to learn to love you.
Yes.
And growing that into like, I love you so much, right? This like feeling of looking into a child's eyes and just like, oh my gosh, you precious human.
Yeah.
It's
That's
like,
beautiful.
wow.
I know. I had the same thing. I used to walk around and kiss my hands, go, I love this guy. I love my color. And it took me
Oh,
a long time to get there. And I would tell people it was not a easy journey, but it was a worthwhile journey. And
mm,
I mine was guilt and all kinds of other stuff. I always tell people I broke up. I broke up with guilt, and I will never have that relationship again. So um, sometimes I tell them, I said, you'd
yes.
have to take some of those entities that are walking with you and bring them as an individual to in front of you and speak to them and cut off that relationship and move on to the next, just bring them all before you. I remember doing that
Mm,
one night. I sat down and I was meditating, and I saw this vision of this entity, and I told it, I said, come. I said, I recognize who you are. And I said, have a seat and we're going to have a conversation. And so I told that guilt that I carried all my life, I said, thank you so much, but this
mm.
relationship is over. So, but
That's so
I love
beautiful. Yes.
yours when you're talking about you're creating this new being that you are. How did the people around you, did you find people that supported you in the sense that can partner with your vision, or were they still people that are close to you were saying, never again, you can never do it?
Oh, I felt surrounded by so much support,
Mm-hmm.
mostly because it was, when you make a decision to follow the truth, to
Yes.
follow what is joyful, what feels like truly empowering and like connecting to a power, like a big part of this was connecting to a power greater than
Greater
myself,
than yourself, always.
feeling the powerlessness of all of the attempts that I had made to control my life and surrendering to this loving power that was
Mm-hmm.
bigger than me
Mm-hmm.
and who had kept me alive my whole life and was there with me whether or not I was accessing
Mm-hmm.
it consciously.
Yes.
And so I feel like when you're surrendering to that, it's easy for people to get behind you. And for the people who don't resonate with you, it's like I don't want to be around those people.
Yes.
But
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
it's nothing against them.
Yep.
I yeah, but it's like I'm no longer um here to people please. And this has been a
Yes.
big that's one of my demons that I need to have a talk with often. I'm like, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I see that you're trying to come date me again and we're breaking up. We're not
Yep.
doing that anymore." It's like the most the most tempting lover to come visit you. Um,
I try to tell people it's a continual thing. It's not.
oh yeah.
They try to revisit that relationship because the relationship was exciting to them as well. So they are trying to come back into that relationship, and it's just a matter of you realizing you have received a deeper knowledge of who you are, and you move and speak and act from this new revelation of who you are. And it's nothing personal. It's just I kind of like this new revelation, this new person. And so you pick and choose who you allow. I tell people we are an endangered species because once you die, there's no other you. The world identifies us by our fingerprints, by our retina in our eyes. Even that is different. And so when I leave this planet, there is not another person with my fingerprints nor my retina. And so, as an endangered species, I ought to treat myself a little special.
I I love that. I've never heard it said quite that way, and it's so true. We are
Yeah.
each an endangered species,
Each and
and
every one.
yes, and we're
Yeah.
also it helps to put into perspective also the fact that there's really nothing but violence that can come from comparing ourselves to
Hmm.
another
To
person
another person. Yeah, it
because
is. How can you? It doesn't. You're that different that you're so special that there's no one like you in another in this universe. I mean, to compare myself to anyone else is what a terrible thing to do to myself.
right, and where the truth is actually you are the best you could ever be, and
Yeah.
that's your only job here on this planet. It's to
Yes.
let more of your you-ness to come through because
Hmm.
that's what we're all hungry for, like, oh
Yes.
my goodness. The
Hmm.
more
Exactly.
it's actually it's not becoming new, it's becoming you. It's
Hmm.
becoming the actual you, and we're
Yeah.
only the things that we're getting rid of are simply the parts of ourselves that are not truly us.
Yes.
Like,
Yes, those are the parts we
yeah.
pick up from people, from friends, from parents, from teachers. Like you had mentioned when your mom had mentioned that about don't let them do this to make you lose weight and stuff like that. It was innocent, but it was a seed that was planted, and that seed grew, and over the years they created branches and fruits and stuff like that off of those
Mm.
that seed. And so
Mhm.
you, as you began to grow, had to deal with all of those branches, but then you started looking for that root. Because once you get hold of that, you know that those branches, that tree is dead, and you're now
Yank it out.
yank it out. And so sometimes you have to become a little brutal with those things to be able to move on, because it is you have to yank it out basically to pull out all the roots. And again, if you look at a tree, the root is not a singular thing. It just has tentacles that create other things, from that particular seed
Mm.
that was planted in your life. And so uh, we have to find and identify those seeds that have give birth to those trees and root them out.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love that imagery. And it's like what's coming through is just our my only job is to tend to my soil.
Yes.
And it's not my mom's fault. This
Mm-mm.
isn't about
No,
anybody's
no
fault.
fault is not anything.
But if
Mm-mm.
my soil allows for a seed like that to be planted, it's
Yes.
my responsibility to rip it out. It
Yes.
doesn't matter who put it there. It
Mm-mm.
doesn't matter where the seed came from. Because if somebody said that same thing to me today, that
Mm-hmm.
seed would have the soil
Yes.
would be inhospitable to it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
my soil is very selective now about what it allows to grow. It's
Yes.
only love and compassion and empathy and freedom and all of these very high vibrational, um, experiences are what I soak up and I allow to create roots inside of me.
Yes.
And those thoughts can still, maybe they become a seedling or
Mm-hmm.
something and it's a little bit of a limiting belief or a thought and it's easier to rip it out now because it's
Yes.
not as deep.
Yes.
It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
get to go down as
Yeah, we
far.
identify those and we become a better gardener. And I think that's the key,
Mm.
that we become a better gardener when we were younger, or maybe when we weren't a student of ourselves, where we weren't studying to learn of who we are. We couldn't have identified those things, and so they grew. But as we began to become students of ourselves, we began to identify certain plants by name. You know them by their leaves, you know them, and you know if this is a good plant or a bad plant. And so you're able to remove it much faster because you have become a student, and you're a better gardener.
Mm. I love that. Yes, we're just becoming better gardeners.
Yeah, that's it. And life is a beautiful thing. Keep telling people it is a beautiful gift that we have here. To why waste it with hatred and all the different negative energy that we see constantly all day, and how ugly someone when they speak and they spew that energy, and the ugliness is, you could see it even in their faces, their hands, their bodies. And when you see someone exhibiting the spirit and that energy of love, you see it in their faces, you see it in their hands. And so it is a shame that so many people have made the decisions not to be a good gardener.
Yes. And that relates a bit to our body image because that's something
Yes.
I struggled with
Mm-hmm.
my eating disorder and my body dysmorphia. The ways I the ways I hated myself were about my appearance.
Wow.
And I can see clearly now that it was never about my objective appearance,
Mm-hmm.
but the energies that I allowed to run through me.
Yeah.
And it's a physical thing, actually. It's a very physical thing when we have those programs running through
Mm-hmm.
us. And it's, having self compassion.
Yes.
If anybody listening to this feels bad about themselves or the way they look, just know your physical body does not need to change, but the energy you allow to run through it does. And you can make this
Yes.
change right now. It's a decision to uproot
Excellent.
whatever
Yes.
is toxic inside
Mm-hmm.
of you, right? That feeling of, I'm not good enough as I am, or that self-hate. You might not hate anybody else, but if you're turning that in on yourself, it's creating it is hatred.
Yeah.
And, it has no business being inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
It'll grasp onto any soil it can find. So, yeah, it's just very worthwhile to find those roots and rip
Mm-hmm.
them out because you're beautiful
Mm-hmm.
right
So
now as you are.
when you were in your 20s, when would you say that after you came back in, the boyfriend's mom came into you guys hanging out in New York and all of this stuff triggers you now? And how old were you when you began to become liberated in your mind?
Mm. Yeah, I guess it started when I was around 26, 27 that I found this path towards
Mm-hmm.
liberation. When I was 28, on my 28th birthday, I actually stopped drinking alcohol. I realized
Mm-hmm.
that was another part of my life that was no longer serving me.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt, and I actually I ended that relationship with that boyfriend also, but in a
Mm-hmm.
really loving way. Actually, it
Yeah.
just felt like it had finished, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was, and it felt like at this time, I did not know where I was going, but I
Mm-hmm.
knew the energy. I knew the momentum that was taking me into a much bigger life than I could ever conceive of,
Mm-hmm.
when I was hiding and in the throes of this obsessive food behaviors and thoughts and all of that. And yeah, and then I guess I was 20, almost 29. Was I 29? Let me think. Yeah, I was 29 when I was working with a life coach, and she helped me to identify my values.
Mm-hmm.
And this was such a revelation to me because I realized my whole life I was living up to these values that were only semi resonant with me.
Mm-hmm.
We all
Mm-hmm.
have our own
Yep.
unique blueprint with our own values that really make us light up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I realized, okay, so if I'm making decisions that are solely based on my values, what would I be doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to take all the money I had saved up and go travel the world.
Nice.
Um, to, yeah, just like find out who I was in different environments and feel the feeling of being at home in my body
Mm-hmm.
all over the place, right? If
Wow.
I'm intentionally homeless, how can I
Mm-hmm.
find the feeling of home inside of
So
me?
how did this and I'll get back to that part when you began to your journey, but how did that decision affected your performance as a comedian, because you were using the your you had said earlier about using the fact that you had this disorder and you were it was a part of your show. So now, as you began to grow personally, how did that affect your performance on stage?
Oh, that's a great question. I started, it's funny because I've talked to a lot of comedians about this where it's like, "Oh man, my old material doesn't resonate with me anymore."
Mm-hmm.
And I would find though there's always a kernel of truth in whatever it is that I'm saying. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to have the same attitude towards it in order for it to still be funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I found that creating a more authentic entry point into
Mm-hmm.
the material, like even just starting out the set or starting out the joke, like, hey, so I'm like 2 months into recovery, and man, is everything different over here. Like everything's in color. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
here's how it was. And I can still
Yeah.
talk about my experiences. I don't need to and I think this is something that I really tried to bring out in the book that I wrote. It's like I
Mm-hmm.
don't need to pretend like anything was different than it was, even
Mm-hmm.
down to like the disempowering perspectives that I held throughout my
Yeah.
journey too.
Yeah.
It's all beautiful. It's all part of it. It's all what's led me to being here right now. And the
Mm-hmm.
being here right now is the truth, right? It's like it
Yes.
all for me, it all comes back to just like, "Ah, I'm here. I'm here in my body in this present moment. This is everything."
Yeah, I tell people it's a as I grew in my own skin, as they say, I started looking back. Okay, what was going on, and I saw that the shift was when I shifted my perspective. I was in this particular situation and I slightly shifted my perspective. And as I began to slightly shift each time, I was creating something different and it made me stronger. I would look back to when my perspective was the other thing and look back and go, wow. And then I kind of look into my perspective at this time and I was like, wow, you know? And so it was just a slight shift that take you from one place to another. And it's really, sometimes I love going back and just laying back and just thinking about wow, you know, and all you could say is just wow because you see yourself as this disheveled human walking in all over the place, but then you see yourself in a different perspective that you are happy with, that you're joyful with, that you can look in a mirror and as you're walking by and just blow a kiss and continue moving
Mm.
by. But I wanted to see how your perspective and you actually answered it. It was a shift of perspective of how you take that situation and now apply it to where you are today. So that is awesome. So now you're traveling the world. and you got a chance to. Which was the first country you went to outside of the States?
The first country was Iceland.
Why?
And well, one of my best friends has done a lot of solo traveling. And so
Hmm.
actually seeing her and how she lives her life was inspiring for me.
Hmm.
And so one thing she recommended was, okay, pick a place you want to go and then see where the layover is and just go there first. Like,
Hmm.
so like letting yourself piece together this choose your own adventure.
Hmm.
And she loved Iceland. And it was
Okay.
on the way to most, I was living in New York. So it was the stopover for most countries in Europe.
Uh huh.
And yeah, so I went there and I had reached out to families there about being a volunteer. There's this
Yeah.
amazing website called Workaway,
My friend told me about
workaway.net.
that.
Yeah,
My
I think it's
friend told me about that.
workaway.info.
Yeah, I think so.
It's amazing.
Uh huh.
You can, in exchange for like room and board, you can live with
Yes, you
this.
do all kinds of stuff. Yeah, actually, someone was telling me about that a couple of months ago, and I told him I said I need to look into that. But yeah, that was excellent. So you went to Iceland. How did your traveling and your interaction, because you're meeting all these different people now, and
Mm.
being that type of a spirit, you get to meet some of the most interesting people when you step
Oh,
out
yeah.
of that comfort, as we say, and began to visit different countries and different culture. How did that move started to affect your being, your spirit, your energy? How did it start doing that?
Wow. I mean, you kind of get to you get to feel how you impact your environment. Like everything
Hmm.
is a mirror for what's going on inside.
Hmm.
So if I was in fear, my environment would reflect that. And if I
Hmm.
was in love and openness and trust, my environment would reflect that. So I yeah, it was an amazing amazing teacher, and it
Hmm.
was like teaching me how to hone my intuition and where like okay, how does my physical body feel
Hmm.
around these people, around the
Hmm.
people I'm with, and like, oh, do I trust this person to hitchhike with them, or do I have
Hmm.
this like reservation, or it was an amazing teacher in just like learning to trust myself.
Yes.
And I was also able to see like the kinds of impacts I was making on the world,
Hmm.
like being in this family that I lived with for about a month. I kind of like cooked and cleaned for them and helped them in
Hmm.
their store. And it was wonderful. But also the unexpected parts of that were, I helped them communicate differently in their marriage or with their children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I helped them see what their creative passions were that were kind of being squashed and
Hmm.
nurture that a bit more.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it was beautiful what would like blossom from these interactions.
That is
And
awesome.
it was something I didn't understand at the time.
Hmm.
And just looking back, I can see how, it was like the beginnings of
Yeah.
feeling myself as like an energetic body more than just this physical body that I'm in, and
Mm.
seeing how when I let my light shine, how it really does impact the world
Impact
around me.
someone else. Yeah. So now you're in 28, around there, 29,
Yeah, maybe
and you're
29,
gone
29 when I'm traveling, sure.
29. And so,
Yeah.
how long did you travel and where did you go?
Sure. So I was out of the States for about 9 months, although
Hmm.
my nomadic nature sort of came with me. So my decision
Hmm.
to come back was because I wasn't ending my trip. I was like, my whole
Hmm.
life is my trip. I had a huge paradigm shift. So
Yes.
I went to, yeah, Iceland, and then I went to England, staying with friends, doing more workaway stuff, meeting up with a
Hmm.
friend then in Northern Ireland and Ireland, traveling back to England, going to Paris and Amsterdam. That was a surprise trip that a friend of mine planned for me. The one who is the solo traveler. She gave me an amazing birthday Christmas present of this trip.
Nice.
And it was so nice. Yeah, and I just met all the right people. Like the most beautiful souls came to me on my path.
Yeah,
And
it's an interesting journey,
yeah.
isn't it? When you have started that, how the people that you just happened to meet, as they say, is was a perfect pairing at that time. The life exchange, the joy, the beauty that is exchanged within that time period that you're there, it's fascinating. It's really beautiful. And so you get a chance, 9 months, then you're back into the States because I'm leading to
Yeah.
this book. I'm getting to that
Oh,
book
yeah, we're
because
leading to the book. Okay, we gotta hurry up.
we're
Yes,
getting
I
to
was
that
gone
book
9 months.
because you
I
got
went to
back
Thailand and
now.
Bali, also came back.
Oh, that's great places. Love those.
Really good, really good. Yes. Oh, man. So, yes, I'm back in the States.
Hmm.
I travel, I take a road trip up to I also meet my now boyfriend. We dated for a
Uh-huh.
couple of months, became friends again. I had just inner journeys to go through.
Yes,
And,
yes.
it's all about attuning to, like, what feels right, what is
Hmm.
right next. And,
Yes.
I was actually planning to go back to Bali. I was scheduled to be facilitating an improv workshop at the Bali Spirit Festival. And
Wow.
I yeah, I was gonna be going back there March of 2020, dun, dun,
Hmm.
dun, and I was living in New York at the time, doing some occupational therapy related work just to make
Hmm.
some money
Yeah.
and then the pandemic hits, and I've been
Hmm.
feeling I knew I had a book inside of me that wanted to come out, and
Hmm.
honestly, I thought it was gonna be a book about my solo travel adventures, but the the message came to me that I was like, "Nope, actually, your recovery journey is what made this other
Book.
journey
Yeah,
possible."
possible. And
Mhm.
so, in the book, that you are going to be published in a few weeks, how did that come about? How did you start the process? Because I remember when I wrote Threads of Enlightenment, it wasn't, I didn't, the idea wasn't Threads of Enlightenment. It was something totally different. I actually wanted to. I have my sons, and I have four sons. And I was a single dad at the time, and I wanted to put all my little nuggets that I'd learned in life into this. Call it the toolbox and put it in there for the kids. So I was putting that together, and
Oh, that's
and
beautiful.
it changed from that all the way to a book called Threads of Enlightenment. So that's why I was laughing when you were talking about what you thought the book would be, because the same thing happened to me. And one day I sat down and began to write the paragraphs. It just flew out of me, and I just wrote it. And I called on a friend of mine who was Hindu belief system, and I grew up in Christianity. And I told her, I said, Rade, I want you to do me a favor. I'm going to send you these chapters, and I want you to write about them. And I'm going to write about them, but we're never going to look at each other's information, and we're going to post it just as is. And so I did that because I wanted to. I thought about it would be great to have a female, number one, number two, someone from a different belief system. And my what I wanted to show was that of that thread, every religion, I don't care what religion you're from, we talked about self-love, and all we did was wrote. She wrote her part, I wrote mine, I submitted mine. For each chapter she submitted hers, and that's how the book came about. I never did
Wow.
anything. And if you see that, the threads are the same. And so I wanted people to understand that religion separates us. The principles are always there. And so, as you saw the change in the book, because we have this perception of what we wanted, hey, I'm going to write this book. And then life happens and said, no, Katie, I have another book for you. So, how
Yes.
long,
Mm.
the pandemic, how long did it take you to write it? The whole entire thing, or how was that journey?
Yeah, so it felt like these marching orders from the universe of like, "Okay, well, you need to sit alone in your apartment and do this every day. This is your" It was like, "This book is your boyfriend. Let's pour
Nice.
your love into this book." It felt like
Hmm.
being at a sleepover with myself, to be honest. I mean,
Wow.
it was this feeling, it's all hand drawn and handwritten. And I just
Nice.
had this sacred time with myself every day.
Hmm.
Like every morning I would wake up
What a
and
privilege. Wow.
it was really, yeah, it was really beautiful. And I didn't realize how much that was gonna release me of carrying around this story, because
Hmm.
this was a story that it's like I couldn't just let it go because it had
Mm-hmm.
made such an impact on me. I
Yeah.
wanted to set it free and be able to offer it up just as a, what it really was for me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it felt like this experience was given to me to be shared, and it doing that through the book felt really right, and it also felt, it was like I feel so much lighter after having written it because
Mm-hmm.
the story was taking up space in my
In your
being.
being, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even though I had lived through it,
Yeah.
this was an important part of living through it, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
realize it at the time what it would do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I
I think it's
feel.
a beautiful piece because
Mhm.
now you have just offered up yourself to the masses in the pages of the book. And so you are now at that place at the last book chapter of Threads of Enlightenment is about us becoming servants. And so
Mm.
you have now through your life offer yourself, and your beauty now is to enhance someone else's, to take that seed and begin to plant it somewhere else. And so I'm going to tell everyone to buy your books so that you can hopefully get a plant a seed in someone's life, male or female, that are going through some of the things that you have been through, dealing with the eating disorders and all of the other things that you've gone through in your path. I want to thank you so much for coming. You have visited us and entrusted all that you are to us. My hope is that the listeners would take what you have given to us and deposit into us, that we can feed ourselves and then feed other people and educate them. And I want to send them to your sites and so forth so that you can continue to feed them so that they can get victory in their life. And I thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you so much, Ken. This was really, really special. I feel fed by this experience myself. So thank you.
Thank you. Everyone who's listening to this podcast. We hope to continually help you to learn how to embrace moments of darkness, because it is in the darkness that we learn how to develop and use our abilities to truly see those parts of ourselves, often invisible to us, in the light. It becomes your responsibility to navigate through all of your trials, to find out who you truly are and begin your journey to loving yourself, which is possibly one of the most difficult things you will ever do in your life. To love yourself and to find the real you, but always remember to enjoy the journey. Thank you for coming by. Please subscribe. And if you can support us financially, we deeply appreciate it.